The fog was thick that evening, wrapping the streets of London in a damp, suffocating embrace. The lamp-posts, their glow dimmed by the mist, flickered weakly as the city settled into an uneasy silence. In a small office, tucked away above a bookshop on Fleet Street, Detective James Morgan sat hunched over his desk, his eyes scanning a series of strange letters he had received that morning. The handwriting was elegant, yet there was something unsettling about it, an almost ominous precision. Morgan, a man known for his sharp mind and unyielding focus, had been solving crimes in London for nearly 2 decades. But this case was unlike any other. The letters spoke of a shadow, a figure who had been haunting the city for weeks. The writer claimed that a terrible event was looming, one that would shake London to its core. And the last clue was hidden within the light of a single lamp in the heart of the city. The detective leaned back in his chair, his fingers drumming the surface of his desk. What could this mean? He muttered to himself. The letter had mentioned a final light and how it would be extinguished at precisely midnight. He knew this was no mere riddle. It was a warning. Determined to uncover the truth, Morgan stood up, grabbed his coat, and set off into the night. The cold air hit him like a slap as he descended the narrow staircase from his office. London was alive with sounds, the distant chatter of street vendors, the clatter of horses' hooves on cobblestone streets, and the occasional cry of a night bird. But there was something different about the atmosphere tonight. It felt as if the entire city was holding its breath, waiting. He made his way to Covent Garden, where the streetlights were barely visible through the thickening fog. The mystery letters had mentioned a particular lamppost, one that stood at the intersection of 2 narrow lanes. Morgan arrived at the spot just as the clock struck 11. There, in the center of the intersection, stood an old lamppost, its light flickering in and out. It looked ordinary enough, but the detective couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He approached it cautiously, inspecting the surroundings. The street was empty, save for a few stray cats slinking through the shadows. As he peered closer, Morgan noticed something odd. Beneath the lamppost, barely visible in the dim glow, was a small, intricately carved box. He knelt down and picked it up. The moment his fingers touched it, a strange chill ran down his spine. The box was heavy, made of dark wood with silver inlays. On the top, there was a single word carved into the surface: midnight. A rush of realization hit him. The letters had been warning him about this exact moment, the time when everything would come to light. He glanced up at the clock tower in the distance. It was just moments away from midnight. With a swift motion, Morgan opened the box. Inside, he found a small parchment, its edges yellowed with age. It read, "The last light will shine, but it will not last. To save the city, you must extinguish the source before midnight strikes." Morgan's heart raced. He glanced around frantically, looking for any sign of danger. And then he saw it, a figure emerging from the fog. The shadowy figure moved toward him, cloaked in black, with the unmistakable silhouette of a top hat perched upon its head. The figure's face was obscured, but the eyes, gleaming beneath the brim of the hat, locked onto Morgan's with a piercing intensity. The detective instinctively reached for his pistol, but the figure stopped just a few feet away. "You're too late," the figure said, his voice smooth and low, like a whisper carried on the wind. "Who are you?" Morgan demanded, his pulse quickening. The figure tilted his head, almost as if he were amused. "I am the one who controls the light," he replied, his voice chilling. "And tonight, London will fall into darkness forever. Your city is a haven for secrets, for crime, for those who hide in plain sight. It is time for the light to fade." The detective's mind raced. He realized that the light the figure spoke of wasn't just the lamp above them. It symbolized something deeper. The truth, perhaps, or the city's last hope for redemption. Before Morgan could act, the figure stepped back into the fog, disappearing like a wisp of smoke. He was left standing alone, the box still clutched in his hand, the parchment burning in his mind. The clock tower tolled 12. Suddenly, a scream broke the silence. Morgan's head snapped in the direction of the sound. It came from a nearby alley, shrouded in darkness. Without hesitation, he dashed toward the noise, knowing he was running out of time. As he rounded the corner, he saw a young woman lying unconscious on the ground. Her face was pale, her breath shallow, and beside her was a strange, glowing orb, its light flickering, fading, as though it were being drained. Morgan quickly recognized the object. It was a rare artifact, known only to a few, the Heart of London, a relic believed to possess mystical powers. Its light was said to represent the soul of the city. If it were extinguished, London would be plunged into eternal darkness. With no time to lose, the detective scooped the woman into his arms and ran toward the heart of the city. He had to find the source of the dark figure's power. But the streets were empty, eerily silent now. As he neared the city's old cathedral, a cold wind swept through the streets, extinguishing the lampposts one by one, leaving only the darkness behind. Then Morgan saw it. At the entrance to the cathedral stood the shadowy figure, holding the glowing orb high above his head. "This is the end, Detective," he said softly, a sinister smile creeping across his face. But just as he raised the orb higher, Morgan made his move. With a precise shot, he struck the figure's hand, causing the orb to fall and shatter into a million pieces. A burst of light erupted from the remains, and for a moment, the city seemed to breathe again. The figure let out a scream of frustration, his form beginning to dissolve in the light. And just like that, the last light of London flickered, but did not fade. As dawn broke over the city, Detective James Morgan stood alone in the quiet streets, the mystery finally unraveled, and London's last light restored.